With the first overall pick, obviously the Las Vegas Raiders are going to go with Fernando Mendoza. It's the clear-cut #1 pick. Now the draft actually starts. At #2, who does the Jets go with? I mean, this is not a heavy, great QB class other than Mendoza. I mean, Ty Simpson, but you wouldn't draft Ty Simpson at 2. You're not going to draft any of these other QBs at 2. Ty Simpson might be a first-round pick, but the Jets aren't going to pick him at 2, or they shouldn't pick him at 2. I think the Jets at 2, I think they go Marvell Reese. I think that's probably the best decision, either Marvell Reese or David Bailey. I wouldn't pick a cornerback at 2, even though the Jets probably, I mean, the Jets need everything. But with this pick, I am going with Marvell Reese out of Ohio State going to the Jets at 2. And then with the third overall pick, we got the Arizona Cardinals. They're all gonna get rid of Kyler Murray. They've already said to Kyler that he's gonna get cut. So I don't think they go QB in the draft. I think they pick one up in free agency, and then they might draft one next year in a QB heavy draft. So I think with the third overall pick, Arizona needs offensive line. You got to protect whoever QB they bring in free agency. So I think the best offensive tackle on this board has to be the tackle out of Miami. And I have him going to Arizona at pick 3. With the fourth overall pick, the Tennessee Titans. This could be a spot where Sonny Styles could fall. I mean, as a Commander fan at 7, if Sonny Styles does fall to 7, that would be awesome. But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, they could go corner. I I wouldn't go Jeremiah Love at 4. I don't think the Titans go running back at 4. They could go David Bailey at 4. I think it might have to be Sonny Styles. I either think you go corner if you're Tennessee, or you go best player available, which is either Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love. If you're Tennessee, I think it's either between Sonny Styles or Mansu Delane from LSU, the corner. I think if the Titans don't go corner, the Giants would pick Delane out of LSU at 5. I'm going to go Delane to the Titans at 4. And then the Giants at 5. You could see Caleb Downs. They could use wide receiver. This could be the first wide receiver off the board. Parnell Tate. They can also go tackle. I mean, Spencer Fano had short arms at the combine, so that's probably gonna drop his draft stock. As much as as a Commander fan, would not like this to happen, I think the Giants would see Sony Styles still on the board at 5 and probably go Sony Styles. It could go Caleb Downs. You know what? I'm gonna probably have him. No, they're probably gonna go after Sony Styles. I mean, I don't really need linebacker though. But the best corner just went to Tennessee at 4. We could go Cornell Tate at 5 and pair him up with um, Malik Neighbors. I don't think you pick a. I mean, the Giants could pick a guard at 5. I think it's either between Cornell Tate, Caleb Downs, or Sony Styles. And I think sucks as a Commanders fan, but I'm gonna probably have the Giants go Sony Styles at 5. He was all so close to falling to 7 to my Commanders, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I think as much as the Giants probably don't need linebacker, you don't pass up on a guy like Sony Styles. What he did at the combine, you don't pass up on him. I think Cleveland at 6. They could take the first receiver off the board. I really like Jordan Tyson. My favorite receiver out of the draft is KC Concepcion, but I don't think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I would say, I mean, you could pair Myers Garrett with an edge rusher, with another edge rusher coming off the end. I mean, with how this draft is falling into place, the Commanders might get their chance at either Ruben Bain or David Bailey. I think I'm gonna have the Browns take Spencer Fano out of Utah. I mean, the Browns need offensive line. I know they traded for a offensive tackle, but they need offensive line. It's either Cornell Tate or Spencer Fano at pick 6. I'm actually gonna have him go Cornell Tate, the wide receiver at Ohio State, even though he ran a slow 40, like a 5, a 4.5, which is not that slow, but based on the other receivers in the combine, it's one of the slowest, which could drop his draft stock. I think actually the tackle from Georgia, he could jump above Fano just because of uh, Fano's arm length. Could be the main reason why he falls. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Cornell Tate. I think the Browns need weapons, so the Browns go wide receiver Ohio State Cornell Tate. Now my Washington Commanders. I think my Commanders have a chance at either Ruben Bain or David Bailey in this scenario. And in this instance, I would go David Bailey. We need edge rushers. David Bailey, 6'3", 250. Him falling to 7 would be nice for Washington. So I'm going to have Washington go with David Bailey out of Texas Tech. The Saints at 8. They could go Ruben Bain since he's falling down the draft board. Caleb Downs is still available. Caleb Downs could fall straight into Cincinnati's lap at 10. I know that some people think that Jeremiah Love goes to 8 to the Saints. I don't think he does. But since Cornell Tate went 6 to the Browns, I think the Saints could go defensive line. What offensive tackles are available? Spencer Fano, Freeling, Caden Proctor still available. I could see Cornell Tate dropping to 8. But because of this, I think Ruben Bain, he's a good player. It's just the only thing that's dropping him down the draft board is his small arms. I mean, I didn't think the Saints would go running back at 8, but how I'm kind of looking at this now is the Saints go Jeremiah Love at 8, the Chiefs go Ruben Bain at 9, and then the Bengals go with Caleb Downs at 10 because the Bengals need a safety. I was planning on Jeremiah Love going straight to the Chiefs at 9 because they desperately need a running back. Well, not really desperately, but they need running back help. And I thought Jeremiah Love would have fit perfectly in Kansas City's offense. But Kansas City could pick up a free agent running back before the draft. So I'm going to say Jeremiah Love goes to the Saints at 8, and then Ruben Bain is still sitting here at 9. Even though they do need offensive linemen, I would wait for the Chiefs to draft an offensive lineman until the 29th pick, which they got from the Rams by trading Trent McDuffie. So at 9, Ruben Baines is sitting here. So I think the Chiefs run their card up and get Ruben Bain out of Miami. And then Cincinnati, Caleb Downs is still sitting on the board at 10. Best case scenario if you're Cincinnati. Defensive line, maybe Caleb Banks. I wouldn't draft I don't think I would draft a center or guard for Cincinnati here, especially when Caleb Downs is still on the board. So I think he goes 10 to Cincinnati. It fills a hole in Cincinnati's defense. They can always pick up offensive linemen in the draft, in free agency. I would say if Francis from Miami falls down to Cincinnati at 10, or Cincinnati trades up and gets Francis, that would probably be one of the only tackles. Unless they feel like Spencer is fine, they could put him into guard, switch him to guard. Or if they want to, I think, a little bit of a reach to draft Monroe Freeling at 10. So that's why I went Caleb Downs at 10. And then at 11, Miami is probably going to get rid of Tua. They already got rid of Tyreek Hill. What other cornerbacks are left on the board? They could go McCoy at 11. I would say McCoy out of Tennessee at 11, or maybe Malachi Lemon. I would probably go after McCoy from Miami. This this guy out of Penn State could be a spot where he goes to. 6'4", almost 330. Miami needs guards. I'm between McCoy and the guy out of Penn State from Miami. I'm going to have Miami go the offensive guard from Penn State at 11. And then the Dallas Cowboys at 12. They just re-signed Javonte Williams to a new contract. I think at 12, is there any other edge rushers available? Mazadier from Miami. They could go linebacker. I mean, is CJ Allen worth a top 15 pick? See him probably going to Tampa. Since McCoy is still sitting on the board, I'm gonna go with Jamad McCoy to Dallas because they could go safety. I just think this is too high for Dylan, so I'm gonna go corner out of Tennessee to the Cowboys, and then the Rams with the Atlanta Falcons first round pick. I don't think they need a cornerback in the first round because they just traded for Trent McDuffie of the Chiefs. They could go tackle. They could go ahead and say Spencer Fano from Utah. The tackle from Georgia is 6'7", 315 pounds, and Spencer is 6'6", 308. I would actually go Monroe Freeling if the Rams go tackle, because I don't think they need corner. I'm gonna go Freeling at tackle for the Rams. So at 14 with the Raiders, since they just got rid of Max Crosby and he got traded to the Baltimore Ravens, why not use the pick that you got from the Ravens to get your new edge rusher, Hakeem Mazadir from Miami? 6'3", 280, and he's only 25 years old. He's a little older, but he is a really good edge rusher. And you just traded your best edge rusher, so you got to replace him. So why not get Akeem Mezadir from Miami, go into the Vegas Raiders, and then at 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This could be a spot where Kenan Sadiq goes. They could also go with CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. They could also go corner. You got Terrell. I think Kenan Sadiq at 15 to Tampa just makes sense at this point of the draft. He's still on the board. He's the best tight end in this class. So Kenan Sadiq, the Tampa. The Jets at 16. The Jets just drafted at number 2 Alvin Reese, linebacker out of Ohio State. This could be a point where, if they wanted to, they could go Ty Simpson. Might be a tad bit early for for Ty Simpson at 16, but there's a chance that this is kind of where his window starts. If it's not the late teens, it's like early 20s. Ty Simpson could be available. and talked about. But I think in this scenario, the Jets don't go quarterback. Honestly, I would if I was the Jets, I would probably just pick up someone in free agency for 1 year and then wait till 2027 and wait till that class of QBs come out. Because there's going to be a loaded 2027 QB class. And that's when the Jets pounce on a quarterback. So I think at 16, you either go wide receiver Jordan Tyson or Malachi Lemon. I might have to go with Jordan Tyson. I mean, Malachi Lemon is 5'11", 195. That would be a good fit for the Jets. Pair him up with Garrett Wilson. What are the defensive linemen available? They could go Caleb Banks. Honestly, their defense was so bad. They need some cornerback help. I mean, they had no interceptions on defense. You got Terrell, you got Hood. I'm gonna go with Terrell. I think Terrell at 16 to the Jets. So the 17th pick, I'm gonna have the Detroit Lions go with Kendrick Folk, probably, unless there's an offensive lineman that. Kendrick Proctor just sounds like a Lions player. I mean, this past college season, Alabama had him out wide on a passing play. I could see the Lions doing something with him just like that. I might have to go Caden Proctor to the Lions at 17. 18, the Minnesota Vikings. They are cutting Aaron Jones, and I'm pretty sure the center retired. I think. I just think Dylan out of Oregon just fits Minnesota. I mean, you got uh, Harrison Smith. He's probably going to retire. Just replace him with, you can't really replace Harrison Smith, but I think Dylan from Oregon could at least give you something that Harrison Smith had when he was playing with Minnesota. And then Carolina at 19. I don't think Carolina goes wide receiver in the first round. I mean, we've got back-to-back wide receivers in the first round. I would like for Carolina to go defensive line. I mean, even a linebacker, maybe CJ Allen, since in this scenario he's still available. I also think Peter Woods out of Clemson could pair nicely with. Um, I think he could pair nicely with Derek Brown. That would be a good 1-2 punch at the defensive tackle position. But with this scenario happening, I'm gonna go with CJ Allen going to Carolina at 19. And then Dallas is back on the clock at 20. I had them picking corner McCoy out of Tennessee with the 12th pick. I think at 20, I would say, the Cowboys are probably looking at CJ Allen going like, that's our guy. But Carolina drafts him ahead of the Cowboys. So I think at 20, you could go Emmanuel McNeil Warren out of Toledo at safety. They could go wide receiver. Well, I mean, they have George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. Kendrick Folk is still available, and I think Dallas might have to pounce on that. Yeah, I'm gonna say Kendrick Folk goes to Dallas at 20. I have Dallas picking two good defensive players as a Commanders fan. So, not quite happy with that. Good picks for Dallas, but coming from a Commanders fan, not really happy with that. Pittsburgh at 21. This could be another spot for Ty Simpson. Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back? Is he going to retire? They did draft a quarterback last year in, I think, the 6th round. I think Pittsburgh. This could also stop the slide of Spencer Fano. I actually no. For Pittsburgh, it has to be either Malachi Lemon or Jordan Tyson. The fact that both of those receivers are still on the board at this point of the draft, they could go Casey Concepcion. I'm gonna go Jordan Tyson. I think Jordan Tyson in Pittsburgh with DK Metcalf, 6'2", 200. I think Jordan Tyson goes to Pittsburgh at 21, and then Chargers at 22. They need offensive line. They need interior offensive line. I would probably go the best center in this class. I might have to give him an offensive guard. I'm gonna go with the guard from Oregon. And then the Eagles at 23. They could go corner. And you got Colton Hood still available. You got Brandon from South Carolina. They could go edge. They could go safety. I mean, isn't one of those safeties a free agent? They could replace him with the safety out of Toledo. I mean, what are the best corners available? I might have to give the Eagles Colton Hood at 23. The Browns are back on the clock at 24. The last time the Browns picked, I had them going with Cornell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. With this pick, you go tackle out of Utah, Spencer. He was sliding down the board because of his small arms. 6'6", 308. He ends up going to Cleveland with the 24th pick. Chicago at 25. I was looking at Emmanuel McNeil Warren at 25 for Chicago. Caleb Banks is still available though. They might go Caleb Banks here in this scenario. Yeah, I'm gonna have him go Caleb Banks. Get the defensive line beefed up in Chicago. Buffalo at 26. Well, they need a receiver. They did get DJ Moore, but I think in this scenario, Malachi Lemon is still on the board. Casey Concepcion is still on the board. I think you don't pass up on Malachi Lemon if he falls to Buffalo at 26. I would go with Lemon to Buffalo. The San Francisco 49ers at 27. Emmanuel McNeil Warren could be the option in San Fran. Kalen Rutledge could be a Niner. I think in this scenario, you could go McNeil Warren uh, if you're San Fran. I might have to go McNeil Warren to San Francisco. Houston Texans at 28. They just got David Montgomery from the Lions, so I don't think they would go running back. I don't think they need an edge rusher because they just re-signed Delaney Hunter. And they still have Will Anderson, so they don't need an edge rusher. I think you could go Peter Woods. You could go offensive line. I'll give him Sam. They could go tackle. I think I'm just going to give the Texans Peter Woods. No. It's either Rutledge or 6'4", 330 at 22, or it's Chase at 6'5", 315 at 22. I'm going to go Chase. Kansas City at pick 29. I think you have to go offensive line. I already had him going Ruben Bain at 9. I think I'm going to go with Peter Woods to Kansas City. You still have Chris Jones, but he's getting up there in age. You got Peter Woods, who's 6'3", 310 at only 21 years old. It would be a good 1-2 punch for Kansas City. You beef up that defensive line. I mean, you just added Ruben Bain as an edge rusher. If you get Peter Woods, but they did just trade away their cornerback. I don't know if I like the who's left at cornerback to draft in the first round. This could be a spot where a team in the second round could trade up with Kansas City, and Kansas City trades away this pick. But because of I'm not doing trades in this mock draft, they could go tackle. I either have the Chiefs going Blake Miller out of Clemson or Peter Woods out of Clemson. I'm gonna go Peter Woods to Kansas City. Beef up that defensive line. And then Denver at 30. If there is going to be two tight ends drafted in the first round, I can see Eli Stovers going 30 to Denver. They could go Jaden Price, the backup running back out of Notre Dame. Maybe Jaden Price out of Notre Dame to Denver. I think Eli Stovers makes more sense. Yeah, I'm going to go Eli Stovers to Denver. There's going to be two tight ends drafted in the first round. And with the 31st overall pick, the New England Patriots I think they could go offensive line. Could get someone like a Blake Miller. Cassius, Cassius is still available. New England did just cut Stephon Diggs. They they did cut Stephon Diggs. How about KC Concepcion to the New England Patriots? 5'11", 190. He's not the biggest receiver. I would say KC Concepcion to New England at 31. And at 32, the Seattle Seahawks. I know that the Seahawks might be saying goodbye to their Super Bowl MVP running back. He might not be re-signed. Unless there's a good corner or linebacker, maybe Brendan Siss. I don't think Jacob Rodriguez is a first round pick. He's a good linebacker. I don't think he's a first round pick. I think, mid second, maybe third. I am probably going to have to go with a running back here. Unless the Seahawks find a way to re-sign Kenneth Walker or sign a running back in free agency, I think Jaden Price might sneak into the first round. 6'2", almost 250. I mean, I'm not really a huge fan of the remaining linebackers or corners in the first round. They could go Price because they're losing out on Kenneth Walker. They could go interior offensive line. But I don't think they go that route. I'm gonna have him pick Price. No, I think Cassius just fits Seattle. I'm gonna go with Cassius. I think the Seahawks can pick up a running back, or hopefully they can try to figure out a contract for Kenneth Walker and bring him back. But I'm gonna go with Cassius for the Seahawks. And this is my mock draft post combine. I have Fernando Mendoza going number 1 to the Las Vegas Raiders. I had the Jets going Alvin Reese at number 2. I got Arizona selecting tackle Francis out of Miami. I got the Tennessee Titans selecting the first cornerback off the board as a Mansour Delane. I got the Giants selecting Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. I got Cleveland picking the first wide receiver off the board with Cornell Tate, even though he ran, not the fastest 40. I think Cleveland would just, pick a wide receiver. I have my Washington Commanders selecting David Bailey, edge out of Texas Tech. I got the Saints selecting Jeremiah Love. I could see the Chiefs selecting Jeremiah Love, but they could also bring in a running back in free agency, like a Kenneth Walker, or a Rico Dowdle to Kansas City could be a an option. So I have Kansas City going with Ruben Bain, edge out of Miami. I got the Cincinnati Bengals at 10 going Caleb Downs. I got Miami at pick 11 going with the best guard in the whole draft class. I got the Dallas Cowboys selecting Jamad McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. I got the LA Rams selecting a tackle because they don't need a corner. They just got one from the Chiefs in a trade. And you got to protect Matthew Stafford. I thought the defense is pretty good, so I have them selecting a tackle. I have the Las Vegas Raiders selecting edge Akeem Mezadir out of Miami. And then at 15, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. At 16, I have the Jets selecting cornerback Terrell out of Clemson. So really focusing on that defense for the Jets. I mean, the defense was not great at all. The Jets' defense sucked, and they had no one with not a single player on that Jets defense had one pick. So you go get a guy who's good in college, who can hopefully get some interceptions for your defense. And then at 17, I have Caden Proctor going to the Lions. At 18, I have Minnesota Vikings selecting their replacement of Harrison Smith, safety Dylan Diamond, safety out of Oregon. At 19, I have Carolina selecting C.J. Allen, not corner. I got Carolina selecting C.J. Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. I mean, kind of knew Sonny Cyrus wasn't going to make it to 19 after that combine he had. I think Carolina needs linebacker. I think we need to draft some sort of defensive player in the first round. I think CJ Allen fits the bill. I think he would be a good piece to plug in on that defensive front seven. I got Dallas at 20 picking Kendrick Folk out of Auburn, the edge. So I have Dallas selecting two good defensive players, a cornerback and an edge rusher. At 21, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State, to pair him up with DK Metcalf. At 22, I have the LA Chargers selecting a guard. You got to keep Justin Herbert upright. They have two bookends at tackle. They were just injured. I think you bring in a guy who's an interior offensive lineman to try to help Justin Herbert stay on his feet. Big plus. I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Colton Hood out of Tennessee, the corner, and then I have Cleveland at 24 selecting Spencer Fano, tackle out of Utah. At 25, I have Chicago selecting Caleb Banks, defensive tackle out of Florida. At 26, I have Buffalo selecting Malachi Lemon. He falls to 26. I know that DJ Moore is now in Buffalo. I think Malachi Lemon, DJ Moore, you got Khalil Shakir. build up that wide receiver group for Josh Allen, and you get, tight ends and whatnot. At 27, I got the San Francisco 49ers selecting safety out of Toledo, Emmanuel McNear. At 28, I could see the Texans go, defensive line like Peter Woods. I had him going offensive line just to try to same reason as uh what was it? The Chargers with Justin Herbert. You got to keep CJ Stroud upright if he's going to be your franchise quarterback. Pick 29, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson. You pair him up with Chris Jones, and then soon after Chris Jones decides to retire, you got his, the next in line to be the starting defensive tackle. But for the time being, Chris Jones and Peter Woods side by side, and getting Ruben Bain at 9, really beef up that defensive line. I know they got rid of McDuffie at corner. I mean, just how the board fell, there wasn't really, I thought, a good corner to pick at 29 when Peter Woods was still available. So that's why I went with Peter Woods at defensive line. To Kansas City at pick 30, the Denver Broncos, I have them selecting Eli Stovers, tight end out of Vanderbilt, which means those two tight ends in my first round. I got Kenan Sadiq going to Tampa, and then I got the Denver Broncos going Eli Stovers. And then with the 31st pick, the New England Patriots, I have them drafting KC Concepcion. They just got rid of Stephon Diggs. You got to replace him somehow. Casey Concepcion is a really good receiver. He caught everything at the combine. He ran well. I think he would be a good fit for New England. At pick 32, the Seattle Seahawks, I have them picking edge rusher out of Texas A&M, Cassius Howell. You know, at when you're picking 32, your team's really good. It's, best player available or whatever player you think is the best player available. And why not beef up an already good defense and make it a little bit better? So that's my 2026 mock draft post combine. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe.